She was the help, invisible in halls of gold. But when the millionaire invited her as a cruel joke, she walked in like royalty and silenced the room. What followed shook Beverly Hills to its core. You will not believe who she really was. Subscribe now. Real stories that leave you speechless. Victoria Jones had spent 2 long years scrubbing the same marble floors she now stood upon. But tonight, for the first time, she was not holding a mop. She was wearing a midnight blue gown that shimmered like liquid elegance, her posture straight as an arrow, her face calm and unreadable. People whispered, gawked, and pointed. Some laughed outright. It had started 3 days earlier with a gold-foiled envelope, handed to her while she was kneeling beside a fireplace with a dustpan. Charity Gala, dress code maximum elegance, Richard Blackwood, the billionaire host, had said with a smirk. Do try not to wear bleach stains, Victoria. The hallway had erupted with laughter. He and his wife Helena had orchestrated it all for sport. After all, who invites the cleaning lady to a gala unless it is to humiliate her? She will not come, Helena had said to her husband the day before the event, and if she does, she will leave crying within 15 minutes. But Victoria did come, and she did not cry. As she entered the grand ballroom, every head turned. The room went dead silent for just a moment, long enough for everyone to take in the impossible. Her gown looked custom. Her hair was done in a sleek, regal twist. Her heels clicked like she had walked these floors before. She even smelled like confidence, warm amber, and quiet revenge. She really showed up, whispered one of Richard's friends. Where did she even get that dress? Probably borrowed it from a theater. She will trip on it and spill wine on someone rich. Victoria heard every word, but she walked as if she were floating. She smiled softly at no one in particular, then stopped in the center of the room as if the night was built around her. Richard lifted his glass with theatrical arrogance. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, tapping the side of his champagne flute, "allow me to introduce our special guest tonight, the woman who makes this place sparkle, quite literally, our very own cleaning lady." Laughter broke like a wave across the ballroom. Flashbulbs popped. Some guests tried to hide their amusement behind champagne flutes. Others did not bother. Victoria did not flinch. She met Richard's eyes, and for the first time since he hired her, Richard Blackwood looked uncertain. "You must be very proud," she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise like silk. "So many people, so many eyes. So sure of yourselves." Richard blinked. Victoria took a single step forward. Her hand brushed lightly against the pendant on her chest, an old sapphire wrapped in gold. Helena stared. Her smile vanished. Because she had seen that pendant before, not in a store, but in a painting. A painting that used to hang in the east wing of the mansion, decades ago. "Where did you get that?" Helena asked, her voice suddenly dry. "Oh, this," she said gently. "It's a family piece. Been in the estate for generations." The music stopped. Whispers began. Someone coughed. Someone else gasped. And Victoria stood still as a statue in the storm. She had not come to be laughed at. She had come to remind them of what they had forgotten or tried to bury forever. They thought she was a joke, but with every step she took back her power. Behind the gown and grace was a truth sharp enough to cut through decades of lies. What she revealed next would ruin reputations and flip the elite's perfect world upside down. Subscribe for stories that expose everything. Richard Blackwood couldn't understand why his usual charm was failing. He had designed the evening to humiliate Victoria, to remind her of her place. But the room was no longer laughing. Faces that once smirked now held uncertain curiosity. Some even looked impressed. Helena leaned close to him, her voice tight. "She's wearing your mother's necklace, Richard. That sapphire pendant? You told me it was stolen years ago." Richard's jaw clenched. He hadn't thought about that necklace in over a decade, but now it shimmered on the neck of the woman he had mocked for scrubbing floors. "She's bluffing," he muttered, though his voice wavered. Victoria turned slowly to face the crowd. "You invited me to be the evening's entertainment, and I intend to perform. Let me tell you a story." The guests, still unsure whether this was a stunt or a scandal, fell silent. "Once," Victoria began, "a young black woman worked as a piano teacher for a powerful family. She was graceful, intelligent, loved music, and trusted too easily. The family's eldest son noticed her. He courted her in secret. He gave her gifts, promises." Victoria's fingers brushed the sapphire at her throat. She became pregnant, and while he swore he would protect her, the moment his father found out, everything changed. She was paid to disappear, silenced, forgotten. But she never forgot him, or the child they had together. A few women in the crowd covered their mouths. Some of the older guests looked pale. Helena's hand gripped Richard's wrist tightly now. "Richard, she's talking about—" "No," he snapped, but even his denial was soaked in panic. Victoria's voice remained calm like a breeze before a hurricane. "The child grew up watching her mother cry while playing the same melodies she used to teach in grand halls. That child cleaned rooms where her father's name was spoken like royalty, while she was treated like dust." Then she paused. Her gaze swept the ballroom, her chin lifted high. "I was that child." A murmur swept through the crowd like thunder rolling in the distance. "I carry both names, the one given to the housekeeper's daughter, and the one written in the family's will, then erased before the ink could dry." Richard laughed bitterly, his voice too loud. "So what? You're claiming some secret family tragedy? That I have some unknown sibling?" Victoria tilted her head. "Not claiming, confirming." "Prove it," he snapped, his face flushed. Victoria raised her hand and gestured to the entryway. A man in a sharp gray suit stepped inside. "Allow me," he said, holding up a leather folder. "This," Victoria said, "is Attorney Kenneth Rowe. My mother kept everything. Letters, photographs, signed checks from your father, Richard, DNA test results, and even this." She walked toward Richard and held up an envelope. A copy of the original will, before it was edited. Gasps echoed across the room. One guest pulled out their phone, recording everything. Richard tried to snatch the envelope from her hand, but Victoria stepped back with practiced grace. "You think money makes you untouchable, but truth has a longer memory than gold." From the corner, a woman's voice called out, "She looks exactly like Henry Blackwood in the old portraits." Another voice added, "I remember her mother, Isabella, right? She used to teach piano at the estate." Richard's voice cracked. "This is all a lie, manufactured to make me look bad." Victoria turned to him, her face finally losing its soft edges. "No, Richard. You did that yourself. I just showed up." And with that, she turned to the guests once more, raising her glass not in mockery, but in finality. To the truth. Buried, ignored, but never erased. The ballroom was no longer a stage for Richard's power. It had become Victoria's arena.
They invited her to shame her, but she came to shatter them. The room watched in disbelief as secrets spilled from her lips, each one cutting deeper than the last. But the truth she revealed next, it would not just expose a man, it would break the entire Blackwood legacy. Richard Blackwood was no longer the host of a glamorous charity gala. He was the exposed liar in the center of a slowly collapsing empire. "Turn off those cameras," he barked at the guests. "This woman is mentally unstable. This is harassment." But no one obeyed. Phones stayed raised. Eyes stayed fixed on Victoria. She remained calm, like a storm that knew it had already won. "Do you remember this letter?" Attorney Kenneth Rowe said, stepping forward. He held up a page with a faded signature. "Your father's handwriting. It clearly states he acknowledged his daughter with Isabella Green, and he intended to amend his will." Richard scoffed. "It never happened. That will means nothing." Kenneth's voice sharpened. "Then why was this version locked in a safe at the estate under your name? Why was it buried after your father's sudden passing?" Guests gasped. The murmurs turned into pointed whispers. Victoria stepped forward. "Your father died mysteriously. Doctors said it was natural causes, but I did some digging." From her clutch, she produced a small plastic bag. Inside, an old medical file. "This is your father's toxicology report," she said, handing it to a gray-haired man near the front. "Signed by Dr. Ellis Hamilton, your family's private physician." Helena's breath caught. "That cannot be real." "Oh, it is," Victoria replied. "It shows traces of arsenic over months, a slow, deliberate poisoning. Covered up, silenced, but now exposed." The man holding the file looked up. "These records are legitimate." Someone gasped out loud. A woman dropped her champagne flute. Helena turned pale. "Richard, did you know about this?" He backed away. I of course not. She is manipulating everyone." Dr. Hamilton himself entered through the side doors at that moment. The room stilled. The only trusted doctor who had vanished after Henry Blackwood's death walked to the center and took the mic. "My silence was bought, but I cannot hold this any longer," the doctor said, voice shaking. "Henry Blackwood's death was not natural. It was orchestrated." A scream rang out from the back, then silence. Victoria stared directly at Richard, voice now steel. "You buried our father. You erased my mother. You laughed while I cleaned the very halls I was born to inherit." "You had no right," Richard snapped. "You were nothing, a secret, a mistake." Victoria took a slow breath, then replied, "Mistakes do not come with birth certificates, and secrets do not sign legal trusts." From the side, the estate's longtime butler, Mr. Haynes, stepped forward. He held a worn photo in one hand. In it, Henry Blackwood, young and proud, with a woman beside him, Isabella Green. Between them, a baby girl with large, watchful eyes. "My mother kept that photo hidden because she feared what you might do." The room, once full of wine and laughter, now sat heavy with silence and shame. Richard looked around and saw the shift. People were not laughing anymore. They were judging him, and worse, they believed her. It started as a cruel joke, but ended with gasps, justice, and a name reclaimed. As the truth poured out, no one could look away. But what Victoria did next, it was not revenge. It was something greater. Watch until the final second and subscribe for stories that leave you breathless. Richard Blackwood had never been speechless in his life, but now, standing in the middle of a silent ballroom, he had no words. Not when Victoria pulled out the notarized will with her father's signature intact, not when the butler confirmed its authenticity, nor when the family physician admitted the cover-up, and not when the estate attorney, shaking with shame, admitted that certain documents were destroyed under pressure. The empire Richard ruled was crumbling in front of him, and it was Victoria, the woman he once dismissed with a smirk and a mop, who stood at the center of it all. But then something happened that no one expected. Victoria did not gloat. She did not raise her voice or throw his sins back in his face. She simply turned to the crowd and spoke one final truth. "I did not come here to humiliate anyone. I came to show you that the people you look down on are not invisible. We remember, we survive, And sometimes we return with the power you tried to take from us." She turned to Richard, whose hands were trembling. "My mother wanted peace. That is why she never came back. But I needed to finish her story." He whispered, "You could destroy me." "I could," she replied, "but I won't." He blinked, confused. "I'm not here to take what you have. I am here to claim what is mine." Then she handed the folder to Attorney Rowe. "This," she said, "is not just paperwork. It is a name, a history, a seat at the table." Gasps followed as Kenneth Rowe nodded solemnly. "Based on the will, Victoria is entitled to half of the Blackwood estate, including property, assets, and voting power on the family board." Someone clapped, then another, and soon the entire ballroom erupted in not laughter, but stunned, respectful applause. The transformation was complete. Victoria did not need their approval, but they gave it anyway. She walked slowly to the grand piano in the corner of the ballroom, the same one her mother used to teach on. She sat down. For a moment, no one moved. Then she played, the same melody her mother used to hum when the house was silent. Soft, aching, beautiful. It was not just a song, it was history being rewritten in real time. As the final note rang through the chandelier-lit room, tears shimmered in more than a few eyes. One guest whispered, "I will never forget tonight." And just before Victoria rose to leave, she turned to the camera, her voice warm but steady. "There are more stories like mine, more people who were buried, forgotten, erased. This is just one of them. If you believe truth always finds a way, then subscribe. This channel is not about drama. It is about justice." She gave her last look at the crowd, the same crowd that had once laughed. Now, no one laughed. They watched her walk out, head held high. Not the cleaning lady, not a joke, but a name. Victoria Blackwood.